Me a little uncomfy, just a little uncomfy. Salutations, fellow bookworms and manga lovers. Thank you so much for joining me for my first ever YouTube video. November was a pretty long month, but it also happens to be the month that my birthday was in, so I figured, when's a better time to create a YouTube video? I was lucky enough to receive a lot of books and manga from some of my closest friends, from my partner, and I bought myself a lot of books as well because that's just something I do anyways, and so who was gonna stop me from doing it during my birthday, right? So, books are kind of my thing, manga's kind of my thing. I'm sort of like cultivating my own little library at my house. So I'm just going to jump right into it and start showing and talking about the books that I got. I'm going to start off first with one of the only non-fiction books that I got. I'll Be Gone in the Dark, One Woman's Obsessive Search for the Golden State Killer by Michelle McNamara. For those of you who don't know, she was a true crime journalist who dedicated a lot of her time to trying to catch the Golden State Killer, who was a notorious serial murderer and all those things back in the 70s and the 80s. She was, fully convinced that the Golden State Killer, or the original Night Stalker, was still out there, still alive, and she wrote a lot of things about it. Unfortunately, she passed away in 2016, but the Golden State Killer was caught finally and arrested decades after his last known murders. He, I believe, was apprehended and arrested in 2018. I am just really looking forward to reading this. I love true crime. I've been interested in it for over a decade now, and I just think it's really fascinating that not only did they catch someone after so many decades of inactivity, but this brilliant woman knew, she knew he was out there. And I am just really excited to read her thoughts and everything. And again, rest in peace. And thank you, Michelle McNamara, for your contributions to the true crime world and justice. The next books I'm going to talk about are some novels that my dear friend gifted me. She is one of my reading buddies. We have a lot of the same taste, so I trust pretty much everything that she gets me or recommends to me. The first one is String Follow by Simon Jacobs. I'm not gonna lie, I read the back of this book right before I read the back of like 15 other books, so I don't really remember exactly what this is supposed to be about, but I do remember that it is supposed to be scary, and it's kind of thick. I like that. Love me some good horror. Another one that she got me is The Outsider by Stephen King. Don't own any Stephen King novels besides this one. I have not been a huge fan of his work that I've read in the past. That's just a personal preference. I need to read more of his work, gotta give him another shot. I'm not saying I hate him, but I've only really read a lot of his older works, so it will be really interesting to read something that he wrote around the 2020s, and it seems pretty scary based off what I read on the back of it. The little blurbs or whatever you want to call them on the back from other authors and magazines and newspapers seem to be praising it pretty well, which obviously they would because it's on the book itself, but those haven't led me astray yet. So I'm gonna go ahead and assume that I'm probably going to like this book. I am so excited for this book that she got me. Ghost Story by Peter Straub. Straub? I don't know. I'm probably going to mispronounce a lot of names throughout this, so I'm sorry. I read my first Peter Straub book in September of this year. I read his novel Coco. It was sort of like a mystery, thriller, killer, what the fuck ever you want to call it type book. I loved it. I was so impressed with the way he wrote his books. This is obviously one of his more known works that's supposed to actually be scary. Alright, and then here's some hardcovers. She got me Acts of Desperation by Megan Nolan. I didn't know what it was about until she gifted it to me and I read the inside cover. I think that this book is probably going to tear my heart right out, but you know, that's the kind of stuff I like. If it's not interesting or emotionally captivating to me or makes me feel like tearing my eyeballs out, it's not for me, and that's okay. So for all my depressed brethren out there, this book, heartbreak, desperation, hell yeah. And I've got The Blade Between by Sam J. Miller. I have not heard of this book or this author, but it's supposed to be scary. I love horror. I will probably say that a billion times during this video. It's a nice hardcover. It's kind of thick. Again, I don't remember what this is about, but I'm still so excited to read it. Another hardcover, The Loop by Jeremy Robert Johnson. On the back it says, "The Loop is the Cronenberg film we never got." And I love David Cronenberg films. So if I can get that in book form, I'm so excited. If this book doesn't gross me out, I will be very disappointed at the Cronenberg claim. But even if it doesn't gross me out, I'm probably still going to like it. One of the last novels that my aforementioned friend got me was Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. I didn't know that this was a book series until this arrived at my doorstep. This was right up my alley for sci-fi horror. I already read this book. It was so awesome to me personally. In fact, I loved it so much that the next books I got were the rest of the trilogy. It's called the Southern Reach Trilogy, again by Jeff Vandermeer. I'm very interested to see how the rest of the series goes, and to see if I get answers, because the first book left you with so many questions, no answers really, maybe like a couple half answers, but yeah, authority, acceptance, that's the order that they go in. So yeah, Southern Reach Trilogy. I also received another trilogy this month from another one of my close friends. It is the Crank trilogy by Ellen Hopkins. All 3 books. They're big books. I actually did not read these in middle school. That's when I remember first seeing them, back when I was in middle school. They seemed really popular. Ellen Hopkins seems to be like a really popular author. This trilogy follows some fairly triggering drug-related content. I did read part of this. It is written in a very interesting manner. I don't generally read things that are written in an almost like prose, poetry-like manner, which I thought was an interesting choice. I think I get what the author is going for with the way that she kind of, I don't know if you can see this, but with the way she places words, it seems a bit chaotic, and I think that that's probably because what's happening in the book is chaotic. If you're familiar with this, you know what I'm saying. And next I got Cat's Cradle by Kurt Vonnegut. Vonnegut. I've read 2 of his other books so far and I loved them. Neither of them were Slaughterhouse-5. I have read and own Mother Night as well as Galapagos. I just loved his writing style. I love satirical books. I don't know, everything about what I've read from him so far, I just like really hit the nail on the head for me in terms of entertainment and just like thought-provoking things. Next is Paradise of the Blind. I do not know how to pronounce Vietnamese words or Vietnamese names, so I'm not going to try to pronounce the author's name because I do not want to butcher it. At the top of this it says it was banned in its own country, and it's the first novel from Vietnam that was ever published in America. This has been on my to-read list on Goodreads for like a while now. I don't know how long a while is, probably like 4 to 6 months. This had not been on my like to-buy list when I was out at the bookstore, but it randomly popped out at me on a shelf, and I was like, hey, I've been wanting to read that. I love reading stuff that's foreign, like foreign literature. I also got Invitation to a Beheading by Vladimir Nabokov. I read his novel Lolita when I was 12. Shout out to all the librarians in my hometown for letting me check out the weirdest shit when I wasn't even a teenager yet. That was an interesting read. I did not fully understand what I was reading when I read it 14 years ago, but I have been wanting to read more of his work, and I had seen this one come up on Goodreads a few times, and it's definitely a bit of a different plot than Lolita, so I think I'm going to enjoy it quite a bit. And then the infamous Exquisite Corpse by Poppy Zebright. This book came up on Horror Book Talk a lot. I saw a lot of people say things like, oh, this was one of the most disgusting and messed up books I've ever read. And I thought, wow, I want to read that, because that's how I pick half of the books that I read. I didn't look into it at all. I also bought my buddy reading friend a copy because she also likes reading horrifyingly disgusting things. And then I got home and I read the back and I went, oh boy. Oh boy. I like to traumatize myself when I read. I'm sure that this won't be as bad as I think it's going to be. I'll probably regret what I just said later when I finally read it, but I am looking forward to reading this. I do like gnarly horror shock content. And more horror, some Japanese horror. Audition by Ryu Murakami. Hopefully I said that right. So I actually wanted to watch the film version of this during October for my spooky watching time, but I just didn't end up getting around to it. And then I was randomly at Barnes & Noble and I saw this just popped out right off the shelf right at me. It was like, hey, remember me? You thought I was just a movie, but I'm actually a book first. And I was like, oh hey, book first. I'm gonna read you. And so I got it. I haven't read it yet. I do love me a good book that's got creepy, scary ladies in it, so this should be a real winner. I picked this up at Powell's in Portland, Oregon. You Feel It Just Below the Ribs by Jeffrey Cranor and apparently Janina Matthewson. I don't know if they co-wrote it or what. But anyways, I got this book because, one, there's ribs on it and I was like, ooh. But also there was like a little placard in front of it that said, this is sci-fi horror for people that like unreliable narrators. That's my jam. I want to be lied to throughout the whole book. Don't let me know what's actually going on. I don't want to know how it's gonna end. Keep me guessing. I don't have a ton of sci-fi horror specifically yet, so I was like, you know, when in Rome. One does not simply walk into Powell's City of Books without leaving with at least like 3 books that you had never heard of and hadn't planned on buying in the first place. Impulse buy, another one of this dude's books. I say this dude because after this video is over, after I'm done editing, after I've uploaded it, I am going to go and look up how to pronounce every single one of these names. Maybe I got some of them right, I probably got a lot of them wrong, but I'm just going to stop trying. I read Crime and Punishment several years ago. I enjoyed it. I seem to enjoy like classic Russian literature. If I remember correctly, Crime and Punishment was one of those books that had really long-winded sentences, and I could be mistaking it for another book. But anyways, like, I don't need punctuation. You can let the whole page be a sentence. I love that. I saw this, I spent a little bit too much time in the bookstore I was at, and my hand, before I knew it, had reached out and added it to the pile of books I was buying. So I have quite a few of his novels to look forward to reading. This book, We Eat Our Own by Kia Wilson. I saw this and was like, oh, that's probably like a cannibal book, obviously, and it looks cool, and it's a hardcover. But then I read the inside, and honestly, this book, to me, sounds like it had to have been at least a little bit inspired by the actual story behind the filming of the movie Cannibal Holocaust. If you're familiar with Cannibal Holocaust and the filming of that, I'm sorry. If you are unfamiliar with Cannibal Holocaust, if you haven't found it in the wild on your own, don't let me be the reason why you hear about it or look into it. But anyways, this book is supposed to be about, like, an Italian pulp horror director who goes to, like, an Amazonian rainforest with a cast of people to film some wild stuff, and he keeps some of his actors in the dark about, like, their script and everything. And if that doesn't sound like Cannibal Holocaust, then maybe I misread or got misinformation about that film. But it sounds like a whole lot of things happen in this. Not exactly the making of Cannibal Holocaust, but I'm gonna look into it later, because this is giving me Cannibal Holocaust vibes. Dear directors, quit tricking people into filming disgusting stuff. There are people out there like me that are willing to film it. Don't trick people. But anyways, this will be fun to read. 2 books, the last 2 regular books that aren't manga that I'm really excited to talk about. These are wrapped vintage Clive Barker novels, or short stories, novel. The Inhuman Condition and Imagica, I don't know. This is a really big book. This is not only vintage, but it's a collector's. It's a first edition, and it was only $30. So in my mind, that's a really good deal. I've not unwrapped this yet. I don't usually unwrap books until I read them. But yeah, I'm excited. This is cool. The moment we've all been waiting for. It's time to talk about the manga I got. I'm gonna just go ahead and show you all the most important thing first. I got so many volumes of Nana. If you are a Nana lover like myself, you probably noticed that almost nowhere had any volumes available for a while. I was unaware of what the situation with printing them was at the time, but in my mind, I was probably going to spend years trying to collect this series in its entirety, or what is out of it. But they started reprinting more of these, thank you Viz, and I got 9 volumes of Nana. You can probably see behind me there's some more Nana. I believe I only have 5 or 6 left to collect, so that's a good haul. That is a good Nana haul. I'm a Nana stan. I'm reporting for duty. I feel no shame. Thank you Shoujo Beat. Thank you Ai Yazawa. Another manga series that I got a stack of is Hot Gimmick. I have not seen any of these out in the wild before at all. I just grabbed all of them. Because why not? Why wouldn't you? Unless, you know, you can't, which I would understand. I love shoujo manga, I love shoujo anime, and I've been wanting to collect as many shoujo as possible, especially if they are older or even like vintage. And so they did not have volume 1, but that's fine. I'll find it eventually when the timing is right. But I'm looking forward to reading this series. I've heard The characters are just complete hot messes, and that's the vibe I go for sometimes with these manga. So shout out to Escape Fiction in Salem, Oregon. They have the hookup on manga sometimes. Next on the manga bill, I got the final 2 volumes of Blood on the Tracks by Shuzo Oshimi that I didn't own yet that are also available. I believe volume 12 comes out sometime next month, like December 27th if I remember correctly. If you're familiar with this series, it is very intense. It's technically, I think, horror, but it's like very psychological horror. It is a very triggering, very emotional, and just absolutely messed up story. It is not for everyone. It's definitely for a very specific audience. As someone who is not unfamiliar with parental related trauma, I do find this story to be pretty heavy, but also it's hard for me to put into words how I feel about this. Like, I'm not like, yeah, I love this series, it's so good. The artwork is amazing, and I think it's phenomenal that the mangaka can portray so many difficult and traumatic emotions with very little dialogue compared to other manga that I've read. It's like he can do so much with facial expressions, and I think that's really amazing. It's not an edgelord, like, oh, what the fuck kind of series. It's real things that actually happen to people, and just the way that he draws and shows things is really, it's something else. If you can handle really triggering content and you like really dark manga or don't mind it, I recommend this series. Yeah, Blood on the Tracks. Mommy issues. When mommy issues make you go insane. I can relate to that. And there is a pattern with some of the manga that I got. Some more Shuzo Oshimi. He is probably one of my favorite mangaka right now. I already own the first 4 of the Happiness series. I have not started reading it yet. That is how much faith I have in this person who creates these things. I don't even have to read the series yet to know I want to collect all of them. Maybe that's just my excuse for buying too many manga and books, but no. This is supposed to be a series about like vampires and like teenagers going through puberty, I believe, in a way. I'm not particularly certain. I'm sure you've noticed by now through this video that I don't always research things before I dive into them. More horror, happiness. Something tells me that that's probably not accurate to the story, but who knows? This is one I'm really excited about. Super Dimensional Love Gun by Shintaro Kago. For those of you who are unfamiliar with his work, he is an Eroguro artist. He draws and creates stories in the erotic, grotesque fashion, which is absolutely not for everyone. Some of it isn't even exactly for me, but I still will read it anyways just because. He creates a lot of like body horror. If you've seen his like not official, I don't think it's official, Instagram page, you will often see very, very colorful but very strange and bizarre body horror imagery. I have not read this yet. I just want a day where I can just sit down and really just like take this all in. And by the time I'm done reading it, I'm probably going to be like, oh god, why did I think I needed to take that all in? I think that with his art style particularly, it's drawn in a way where it's just digestible enough. This is a little bit more palatable for me, hopefully. I got Downfall by Enio Asano. I've heard great things about his series Goodnight Poon Poon, but Everywhere I Go never has the first volume, so I haven't started collecting it yet. I went shopping at Barnes & Noble for my birthday, and I did a big haul, and this was wrapped. And I was like, it's wrapped, I wonder what that might be about. So I grabbed it. I also got one that has been circulating on the Manga Sphere now lately Drip Drip by Peru Itagaki. I believe he wrote Beastars, or they wrote Beastars. I'm not sure about that mangaka really. I figured I'd give this a shot. It was in my budget. I'd seen it every single time I went to Barnes & Noble, and I was like, you know what, just throw that in the cart. I might as well. We'll see what that's about. Hello Melancholic, Volume 1. I purchased this as a blind date with a manga. It said it was a Yuri romance, and I don't have a ton of those. And I also don't buy a lot of blind date type books, so I gave it a shot. It looks really cute. It's like high school age people, so I'm hoping it's not like weird and creepy and gross, but it looks safe. We'll see. A gift from my friend that bought me a bunch of the books that I showed you all. Sundome Milky Way. I'm censoring this because reasons. This is an adult manga for adults. I skimmed through it and went, ooh. And she also got me my first manhwa, The Hellbound. I have not read a manhwa yet. Shame on me, I know. I keep hearing great things about them. So I'm definitely going to be cracking this one open soon. It looks like it's sort of like horror. I mean, The Hellbound. It sounds kind of like horror. Yeah, probably horror, probably gonna be dope. A few gifts from one of my other friends who also loves manga and anime. Crossplay Love, Otaku Times Punk, Volume 1, and Tokyo Ghoul Re, Volume 14. I have already started collecting some of the Tokyo Ghoul Re series. I believe that's how you say it. So this is awesome, and I have not heard of this before, but it looks pretty cute and silly. I like cute and silly. More adult manga from the big Barnes & Noble haul that I did. Monster Musume. I feel like the cover speaks for itself. I see things like this and think, I should probably read that. I should get that. It says Everyday Life with Monster Girls. It's wrapped. This is probably definitely for adults only, so I should have a lot of fun with this one. This is actually a manga that my boyfriend picked out when we were doing the big Barnes & Noble haul. He saw this and said that he thought it looked kind of funny and kind of cute. I had heard of it before, like I'd heard Sakamoto Days, but I had never like looked into it. I had no idea what it was about, and then I looked at it when my boyfriend showed it to me, and I was like, you know what, good eye, because that sounds really good. So I got this. I'm looking forward to reading something that's a little on the sillier side to break up all the adult monster manga and horrifying things. I got Dandadan Volume 1. I saw a few different people read or buy or recommend this, so I was like, you know, what the heck, this should be good. I say that about everything. I'm like, this should be good. I'm easy to please when it comes to reading, which is a blessing. To work on my collection of things. 2 volumes from Demon Slayer, Volume 12, Volume 13. I was introduced to the anime this year, and I love it. I had to start collecting the series because there's no way I'm going to be able to wait for all of the anime to come out before I know how it ends. I have so much manga to read soon. Let's Stay Together Forever by Tomoko Taniguchi. This was at the used bookstore Escape Fiction that I mentioned before. The first time I went there, it was there, and I was like, wow, that looks really nice. It looks like cutesy shoujo stuff, but it didn't fit into my budget at the time. I was very sad to leave it behind, but I had to. And then when I went back, it was still there because I don't know, who wouldn't want to buy some random like 90s looking old like shoujo manga that's on top of a really tall shelf? I mean, come on people. I took that as a sign that I needed to get it, and I got it. It seems like it's probably gonna be silly like some of the older shoujo can be, but you know, it's colorful, it's cute, it says Love and Rockers on the back. This was a good find. I don't care what happens in this. This is probably great, and I'm glad I own it. Tales of the Kingdom, Volume 1. It says nothing about what it's about on the back of the book, but I saw the art style and the name and the fact that it says like parental advisory warning and is wrapped. I was like, you know, I still had some money in my budget, so I think this was like the last book that I threw in to my cart at the time. It's still wrapped because I haven't read it yet. Like I said, I only unwrap things when I'm getting ready to read them. I don't know why. I guess in my mind it keeps them a little bit safer from the outside world. I'm also collecting Fist of the North Star. I love that these are hardcovers. I really enjoy vintage or older manga, and I don't have a ton of stuff that's like, I guess, action-y, and I get a big action vibe from this. And from what I've seen, it's not only very popular, but the art style is really beautiful. It's the kind of art style that I really enjoy from older manga. So yeah, I have volumes 1 through 3 now. We are finally down to the last 3 manga related things and books in general. So my friend gifted me a Learn Japanese with Manga self-study workbook. I believe this is 1 of 2 books. I didn't know things like this existed. I should have known things like this existed. Now I know, thanks to her. So I've been wanting to learn Japanese and learn kanji. It's not really easy for me on things like Duolingo. I've picked up bits and pieces here and there from all the time I've spent watching anime, but I think this is going to be super helpful, and who knows, maybe eventually I'll be able to pronounce things better thanks to this book. The last 2 things that I have to show now are 2 things that I am probably the most excited about. Those things are the 3rd volume of the deluxe edition of Hellsing. I love, love, love deluxe versions of manga. I think they are gorgeous. I love how they're like extra large. I really particularly enjoy the Hellsing design because of it's just like a beautiful red color. The artwork from what I've seen so far is really great. So I finally have the entire series and I will be able to read it now. The other thing that I got is the 3rd volume of the deluxe edition of Berserk. I also think that this is really, really gorgeous. I just love the way it feels. It's really heavy. It's probably gonna hurt to hold it when I read it, but that is a pain that I'm willing to take on. So thank you to my friend for getting me those. I feel really, really spoiled and really grateful. So if you got to the end of my video, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. I might make more videos in the future if I stop procrastinating so much. Feel free to leave me a comment below and tell me what you've been reading, what you're looking forward to reading, anything you got for like a book or a manga haul recently. And that was my 62 count book and manga haul. Thanks y'all. Have a good one.